If you're like me, you like fun facts, but you love unfun facts. The kind of stuff that would really mess up a conversation at a party, but fortunately, we're not going to a lot of those. Number one, cornflakes was invented to help people stop jerking it. John Harvey Kellogg was a weird pervert, and he was obsessed with the 18th century version of nofap. He wasn't just against solo practice intimacy, he was also against it in all of its forms. He supposedly never even consummated his marriage. He thought bland food would stop people's urges, and that's why he invented very boring flaked grain cereal. He was also obsessed with eugenics and yogurt enemas, so you can see why the company doesn't put him front and center. But if it was up to me, they would change the spokes character on cornflakes from a green chicken to blue balls. Number two, those fidget toys with a bunch of circles that you pop in and out, those were inspired by breast cancer. They were invented by a woman named Ora Coster, who also was one of the co-inventors of Guess Who, and her sister had breast cancer, and during that ordeal, she had a dream about a field of squishy boobs that you could pop down, and when she woke up, she was like, that would be fun for kids. And it was. And finally, Stuart Little popped out of a human woman. In the movie by M. Night Shyamalan, he's an adopted mouse, but in the book by Elowen Brooks White, he was birthed by human parents in the normal human way. In the book, he's not a mouse at all. He's a human boy who just happens to be the size and shape and texture of a mouse, but dressed as an old man with the intelligence of a teenager. So what he really is a young boy, old soul, early bloomer furry who reads at the 12th grade level and was born because his parents, presumably, didn't eat enough cornflakes. Unfun facts. They're like fun facts, but instead they make your life just slightly worse. Bug zappers actually help mosquitoes. Mosquitoes don't give a crap about glowy blue lights. They're not attracted to them. You're not going to zap any mosquitoes. But what you are going to zap are beetles and butterflies and bees. But even worse, you're also going to kill things like dragonflies that eat mosquitoes. You are leaving the demon bugs alone but clearing out their enemies. If you buy a bug zapper, you are on Team Mosquito. Number two, there is an underground fire in a coal mine in Centralia, Pennsylvania that has been burning since 1962. It was started by an oopsie doodle. There's no way to put it out, and it has enough fuel to burn for 250 more years. And the craziest part is that's not the only unstoppable underground fire in Pennsylvania. There's another one 5 hours away in Georgetown, PA that's been burning since the 1910s. There's a bunch more of these burning around the world in coal mines and natural gas vents, but if you want an upside, you can remember that no matter how bad you screw up at work today, at least you didn't start a forever fire. Number three, if you are older than 34 years old and you get pregnant, the official medical term for it is a geriatric pregnancy. And what I think about that is fuck doctors. They could have called it anything, but they chose violence. You show up in your mid-30s and the doctors are like, whoa, calm down, Moses. What do you think we're supposed to do? I'm a doctor, not a witch. Grab a Werther's Original and have a seat. I'm afraid you're gonna fall down and break a hip, mother time. I like fun facts, but I love unfun facts. They're the intellectual equivalent of that woman tasting kombucha for the first time. Number one, there probably weren't many tumbleweeds in the Old West. The Russian thistle, aka the wind witch, aka the tumbleweed, probably didn't arrive until the late 1870s and didn't propagate nearly fast enough to be all over the Old West. So that moment where the good gun boy and the bad gun boy meet on a dusty street to decide who's the best gun boy by having a gun off, and then a tumbleweed rolls by, probably didn't happen. Number two, Monopoly is supposed to suck. It was designed to suck. It was originally based on a game called The Landlord's Game, which was designed to show people what a nightmare landlords are for society. The designer, Elizabeth Maggie, designed a game where the goal was to screw the other players, destroy the housing stock, and make everybody sad, and the Parker brothers saw that and were like, we should make families do this at Christmas. Number three, YouTube exists because one guy was mad he couldn't see enough celebrity nips. You've probably heard that Facebook was originally designed by Mark Zuckerberg as a way for him to compare the women at his college to pigs, but it turns out YouTube has almost the same origin story. It was originally a dating site that was basically Hot or Not, but with video. But then that Super Bowl halftime kerfuffle happened where Justin Timberlake ripped off Janet Jackson's shirt, and for some reason it hurt her career and not his. And the founders of YouTube were like, hey, I want to see the video of that. And they were mad that they couldn't. So they pivoted their terrible dating website into a user-uploaded video website. Basically, if you collected all of the people who started major websites to make the world better together in one room, you would have an empty room and a single tumbleweed would roll by. Unfun facts. Not devastating information, just stuff that'll take you from here to here. Number one, some of the paint in these paintings is people. There was a widely used paint in the 1800s called Mummy Brown that mind-bogglingly contained what it said on the tin. They gathered mummies, mostly from Egypt, mostly human, and ground them down and used them as a paint. And to add insult to injury, it was a not good paint. The color varied too widely, it cracked, it chipped, it did not last very long. It's just one of many terrible things we did with mummies over the years, so when a bunch of mummies attack Brendan Fraser, as much as I love him, I'm on their side. Speaking of creative reuse, human urine is a very useful industrial chemical. It's been used to make gunpowder, to prepare textiles for dyeing, and in medicines, and some farming hipsters are trying to bring it back as an industrial fertilizer. The point is, nitrogen is the #1 resource for humanity, so if you've got a wee bit of it, why piss it away? And speaking of things that are a little foamy, most of the dinosaur bones you've seen in museums were replicas. I've seen estimates as high as 85%, and honestly, I think this is just fine. This is for the best. Like, actual fossils are too heavy, too fragile, and too rare to just have every museum in the world have a bunch of them hanging up where kids could touch them. So they take careful castings of actual fossils and make very precise replicas out of foam. And I don't know if dinosaurs would love that, but at least they can sleep easy knowing they were treated much better than human mummies. I like fun facts, but I prefer unfun facts. They're not the saddest things in the world, but they are slightly unpleasant even to the people who like them. They're the intellectual equivalent of grape nuts. Number 1, 4 out of 5 dentists don't agree on what's actually wrong with your mouth. In 2022, a writer from Reader's Digest went to 50 different dentists and got wildly different estimates of what needed to be done. Anywhere from 1 crown to 21 crowns and 6 veneers, from $400 to $30,000 worth of work, and one dentist even said he needed to completely rebuild his whole mouth. And I know it's already unpleasant to go to the tooth principal's office to lie about how often you floss and then get waterboarded, but now you can add the fear of being scammed on top of it. Number 2, a lot of people crash their cars into 7-Elevens. Over a 15-year period, there were over 6,000 cars crashing into these storefronts of 7-Elevens, an average of over 1.1 per day, and I don't know what to do with that information, so I'm just giving it to you. Maybe you can make sense of it. That seems like a lot, right? And number 3, most people who sell fish are lying about which fish they're selling you. Repeated studies have showed that over 25% of fish sold at restaurants and stores are labeled as a different fish. The most common are snapper and bass, which are mislabeled over 50% of the time. The takeaway from today really is that stuff is hard to tell apart, whether it's bad teeth or good fish, or if you're in front of a 7-Eleven, the gas and brake pedals. I like fun facts, but I prefer unfun facts. Like, I'm not going to ruin your day, but hopefully I can make your next 90 seconds about 9% worse. Number 1, melatonin supplements. Actually, if they work for you, skip ahead about 30 seconds because there's no reason to ruin a perfectly good placebo. Alright, now that they're gone, it doesn't work. Studies show that it can help you fall asleep up to 6 minutes faster, so if your big problem in life is that you're not falling asleep in the correct 5 to 7 minute window, then great, this will help a lot. Otherwise, you might as well buy some Tic Tacs and write super good sleep medicine on the side. Speaking of stuff that's full of crap, the FDA says the correct amount of wood chips in shakeable Parmesan cheese is about 4%. Manufacturers like to mix in undigestible plant fiber into their cheese to help it stop from sticking together, and that can be made with wood chips or rotting apples or other really delicious sounding stuff. And while the FDA recommended amount is between 2 and 4%, some studies have shown as high as 8%. I highly recommend never looking into the FDA's rules if you don't want to ruin the whole concept of eating, but here's one real quick. The correct number of insect fragments in a jar of marjoram is 2,000. Number 3, one of the reasons why taxes are so complicated is because TurboTax likes it that way. The IRS is still piloting their own software, but even then, it's still insanely complicated compared to places like Japan or the Netherlands, and one of the reasons is that TurboTax spent millions of dollars lobbying the government to make sure it was never easy to file your taxes. And they would prefer you not know that fact, and if even bringing up the idea of tax policy was boring and made you sleepy, remember, it was much more effective than melatonin supplements. I like fun facts. I love unfun facts, but sometimes I can't tell which is which. Like, my brain is so pickled in fact juice that I can't tell what's fun or not anymore. So I'm going to tell you 3 facts, and you tell me if they're fun or not. Number 1, sometimes hospitals or nurseries need to evacuate a lot of babies at the same time. Stay with me. So they use a baby jacket. This one's for newborns. It's from a company called Baby Mover, and it's just a bunch of kangaroo pockets at odd angles. For larger babies, they wear them around the waist like a Batman utility belt of babies. So it's definitely fun unless you think of the reason why they're wearing it, and then it's not fun anymore. I don't know. You decide. serious side, number 2, we make horses create medicine for us inside their own bodies. Snake venom can be very deadly to humans, but some animals have evolved to walk around on tall spindly legs in grass where there might be a bunch of snakes, and so they can handle snake bites way better than us. So we take horses, shoot them up with snake juice, and then their bodies create a natural antivenom. Then we blood donor those horses, extract the antivenom, and save a lot of lives. The horses live, so do thousands of people, but this paper suggests the horses don't like it. I don't know, is that fun? I don't know what's fun anymore. Number 3, a lot of Snapple's real facts are real crap. Hat tip to my friend Yurgo for suggesting this fact-on-fact violence. They even included the famous urban legend, average person swallows 8 spiders, which is so obviously not true that it's shocking that got to print. And they even include 2 facts which contradict each other, suggesting that Manhattan and Philadelphia were the original capitals of the United States. So what do you think? Were those all so fun you want more of them inside you like snake venom inside a horse? Or do you want to dive into a baby jacket and evacuate? Or maybe you think they're like a Snapple fact, they're all made up. I like fun facts, but I love unfun facts. They're the intellectual equivalent of buttermilk, like objectively gross to be around, but in certain cases, very useful. Number 1, the way clown cars work is clowns are gross. The classic clown car, sorry, not that one, this one, the one where a bunch of clowns come out of a car, like more clowns than it seems like a car can hold. There's no magic trick, there's no trap door. They just take the seats and stuff out of the car and jam it full of clowns. There's just a bunch of sweaty guys in makeup stacked nuts to butts inside that car. It's like a Tesla forum. Number 2, 99.6% of people who join a multi-level marketing company lose money. Hat tip to Canadian Kells for this one. I assumed it was bad, but I didn't know it was this bad. If you sell Tupperware or leggings or diet tea or whatever, you will lose money. The only worse investment would be buying a clown car. And number 3, if you use coffee pods, you are paying a fortune for coffee. Hat tip to Coffee Geek for doing the math on this one, because it is another unbelievable number. A pound of regular ass coffee is like $8. I'm a sicko. I buy my coffee from a guy who hand roasts to order in small batches and delivers them to your door. It took me over a year to get onto his mailing list, and I spend $25 a pound. If you buy Keurig cups, you're spending between $30 and $40 a pound. And Nespresso pods are $52 a pound for their bad stuff and up to $80 a pound for their premium coffee. That's wild. And very little of it ever gets recycled, so you're creating a ton of plastic and metal garbage, just like, you know, I like fun facts, but I love unfun facts. The kind of facts that made a friend of mine say to me recently, you know, you don't have to do this in real life too. Oh, but I do, Rick. I do. Number 1, heroin was originally invented to be a less addictive cough medicine. They had been using morphine, and that was to replace opium mixed with alcohol. And then the totally normal aspirin company, Bayer, rolled out their hip new cough medicine. And then, of course, in the 90s, Purdue Pharma started pushing OxyContin, and we all know how that turned out. Basically, every 50 years or so, one person is like, I figured out a way to make poppies safe, and they didn't. Number 2, bald eagles don't sound like that. Like every time you see a bald eagle on television or in a movie, it sounds like this. That's the sound of a red-tailed hawk, which the TV people use because they're embarrassed because bald eagles actually sound like this. Just too good of a metaphor that everybody agrees America seems like a great idea until you hear it talk. And number 3, mythology is way grosser than I was taught in school. For some reason, my Greek mythology class completely left out the part where Zeus turned himself into a swan and then got a human woman pregnant. But it's not just the Greeks. Egyptian myths are wild. There's one where Horus, the god of the sky and war, is in an epic battle with his uncle Set over who's going to become the new king. Horus goes into Set's garden, oopsies himself onto the lettuce. Set eats the salad with the creamy ranch, and then later when they show up at trial, the judge is like, his oopsie's inside you, yours is not inside him, he would be a better king. And a bonus fact, Horus's head is that of a falcon, so when he oopsied himself, it probably sounded like this.